to detail what they did last week. According to an email sent Saturday, federal employees have until midnight tonight to respond with a list of 5 accomplishments from last week. Failure to reply, Mr. Musk said, will be taken as a resignation. We're getting your reaction this morning, beginning with a special line for federal employees. 202-748-8003 is that number. Otherwise, phone lines as usual. Republicans, it's 202-748-8001. Democrats, 202-748-8000. Independents, 202-748-8002. You can also send us a text and catch up with us on social media. On X, it's at C-SPAN WJ. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/C-SPAN. And a very good Monday morning to you. You can go ahead and start calling in now. It all began on Saturday with a tweet from Elon Musk saying that, consistent with the president's instructions, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week, saying failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. That email went out on Saturday afternoon. Jay O'Brien of ABC News with a image of what that email said. Please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Do not send any classified information, links, or attachments. And the deadline set for Monday today at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. That email getting a lot of reaction within federal employee agencies. Here's the front page of today's Wall Street Journal. Agencies pushing back over the Musk ultimatum. One more headline from the New York Times this morning. That headline, federal standoff as some agencies urge their staff not to obey Elon Musk's order. It was also the subject of plenty of conversation on the Sunday shows yesterday. Chris Van Hollen, Democrat from Maryland, a state with a lot of federal employees, was on Face the Nation. Here's what he had to say.
So there was this email that went out yesterday to federal employees. We know that at the FBI and the State Department, management inside those agencies have told employees don't respond to the personnel email saying respond with your 5 bullet points. Can people working at the State Department feel safe not responding? Are they putting their jobs at risk?
I don't think so, because what we are witnessing are illegal actions by Elon Musk. And a number of courts, as you know, have issued temporary restraining orders on their efforts to seize important private information, but also on their overall conduct. So what the head of management, the State Department, said is Elon Musk doesn't have the authority to require State Department employees to answer these questions. That has to happen in the chain of command.
Even though the president says he wants them to be more aggressive.
So the reality is we don't know what the president meant, but as you pointed out, you've got Elon Musk taking a chainsaw to the federal government and important services. And there's no Article 4 in the Constitution that gives Elon Musk that authority. And the way that he's been sort of, quote, delegated this authority is illegal, and the actions he's taking are illegal, and we need to shut down this illegal operation.
Chris Van Hollen on Face the Nation yesterday. Elon Musk following up with tweets in response to some of the reaction that this email has gotten, saying at one point yesterday that this email is a very basic pulse check. He went on to say the reason this matters is that a significant number of people who are supposed to be working for the government are doing so little work that they are not checking their emails at all. The Wall Street Journal with a little bit more background in their reporting about how this all came together and why it happened this weekend. From their story today, their front page story, Elon Musk's plan came together in a matter of hours on Saturday, they report. That, according to people familiar with the situation, earlier in the day, President Trump posted a social media tweet that said he wanted the Tesla chief executive to get more aggressive with his role. In response, Musk and his team at Doge sent the "What did you do last week?" email. According to the people the Wall Street Journal interviewed, Musk and Doge officials then communicated the concept to the Office of Personnel Management, the human resources arm of the federal government, which sent the email to some 2 million federal workers on Saturday evening. Musk said in his post on X announcing the email that it is consistent with Donald Trump's instructions. The Wall Street Journal this morning. We want to hear from you, especially federal employees. 202-748-8003 is the number for federal employees this morning. Otherwise, phone lines as usual, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, setting aside this first segment of the Washington Journal today. to talk about this effort, this latest effort from the Department of Government Efficiency. Tim's up first out of Fairview, Pennsylvania. Line for Republicans. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think this is unreasonable at all. I think of many professions and occupations. I made my entire career, almost 40 years, in sales. And we had to do call reports at the end of the day, at least at the end of the week. You wrote down all of your sales calls and what was discussed on the sales call and what are your action items. And I think of like nurses and doctors in the medical profession, they jot everything down. Everything has to be accounted for. Even the FedEx guy comes up to the house. He drops a package off, and they get on their devices and they input information. There are dozens and dozens of occupations and professions where people have to account for and note what they did on the job. I don't think what they're asking of the federal employees is I think it's minuscule compared to other occupations. And that's my point. Thank you.
That's Tim in Pennsylvania. This is Deacon, a Democrat here in D.C. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a first-time caller, and I think that the process by which they're shrinking down government is one that's somewhat draconian but necessary. Now, what the real crux of the matter is, or the real issue is, the unintended incidentals that are going to take place. Look at a guy like in somewhere in a rural part of America, like in Appalachia, who works at some type of steel mill or some kind of metals plant that gets contracted by the federal government. Well, if he just got hired and he has 3 hungry mouths to feed, this guy is going to be X'd out because It's because he was just brought into the system under the contracting system. So therefore, they're going to cut him out so that you can save money on the budget or reduce waste. So, you got the inconsequential incidentals is what's really affecting me. Really, I got concerned about that. I mean, Musk doesn't even wash his own dishes. Trump doesn't even change his own tires. They don't know what it's like to get dirt up under their fingernails, do the work. So really, come on, guys. There's some sane people, Democrat and Republican, that are out here that we can settle the matter, call God's vertical down to our horizontal, then we'll be able to settle the matter with man. It's very simple. Come on, guys.
That's Deacon in Washington, D.C. On some of the numbers that we're talking about here. In his column today in the Wall Street Journal, Justin Lahart goes through the federal workforce numbers and some of these layoffs that have happened already and potential for more. As of January, the U.S. government had 2.4 million civilian employees, excluding the Postal Service. That accounts for about 1.5% of total non-farm jobs. When President Trump took office, he ordered a hiring freeze, and then Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency announced a deferred resignation offer to nearly all full-time federal civilian servants, saying that if they didn't want to work, they could be paid through September. The White House has said about 75,000 people accepted that offer. And then on February 14th, the House began firing workers who are still on their probationary period after getting hired or promoted. He says if you add up the 75,000 resignations to the 200,000 fired probationary employees and perhaps 200,000 people for a usual year of attrition of the federal workforce, the federal employment might drop by 475,000 jobs, or about 20% of the total. Those are some of the estimates, the numbers that could happen. The federal workforce, again, about 1.5% of the total non-farm jobs here in the United States. This is Douglas in Southfield, Michigan, independent. What do you think?
Yeah, how you doing?
Doing well.
That's good. I got a two-part question, and the first part is this. Whenever you do an audit of any type of business, I don't care what it is, whether it's a tech, grocery store, whatever, you send in CPAs. You don't send in programmers. Why would you send in a programmer that doesn't know anything about how that particular organization runs? So what is the point of them having their laptops and loading software that we don't know what the software is on these different organization computers? And second, how can a tech guy cut government workers by saying you're fired? I don't understand that. It seems to me that half of America has given up on America. We still are a country that is ruled by laws. So what are we saying, that all of us should just forget the laws, run traffic lights? You know, there's no law and order no more. We need a president that's able to stand up for the rule of law.
That's Douglas in Southfield, Michigan. This is Albert in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Good morning. You're next.
Yes, none of this stuff that Trump and Musk are doing is legal. Now, I mean, all cuts. If you don't like a government agency, you have to pass a law in Congress to get rid of that agency or to cut that agency. So none of this is constitutional. Congress has to do the cutting. Trump doesn't want to go to Congress. I don't think many of these cuts would pass Congress. And here, to me, the bottom line is they're not that interested in saving money. They want to destroy the federal government. That's what Musk wants to do. I think Trump wants to do that. And so you got all these agencies that they don't like, and it's surprising what they don't like: the Postal Service, they don't like the FAA, they don't like the FDA, they don't like the CDC, and so they're doing all this unconstitutional, authoritarian, fascist-like cuts. It's just it's horrible. It should be stopped.
That's Albert in Michigan. President Trump was at the Conservative Political Action Conference, took place here in Washington, D.C. last week. He spoke on Saturday about his efforts to streamline the federal government. This is what he had to say.
We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce. That's what we're doing. And under the buyouts, we offered federal employees more than 75,000 federal bureaucrats. Think of that. Have voluntarily agreed to surrender their taxpayer-funded jobs. We want to make government smaller, more efficient. We want to keep the best people, and we're not going to keep the worst people. And, you know, we're doing another thing. If they don't report for work, we're firing them. In other words, you have to go to office. Right? Right? Look at her. If you don't report to work, you know, that's another scam.
That was President Trump on Saturday at CPAC. By the way, if you want to watch C-SPAN's coverage of CPAC, you can do so on our website at cspan.org. Taking your phone calls this morning, though, on that email to all federal employees. What did you do last week? Talking about the week of President's Day last week. It was a 4-day work week for the federal government. And that email going out on Saturday asking federal employees to respond with a list of 5 bullet points of what they did last week. The deadline is tonight at midnight, according to the instructions given to those 2.4 million federal employees. This is David, Democrat in Florida. Good morning. What do you think?
Hey, good morning, John.
Good morning.
I'd like to ask you a question there, if I may. As one of the hosts for C-SPAN, can you see yourself hosting the program, say, back when President Obama was in office, and he appointed, say, someone like Louis Farrakhan to be the overseer of DOGE? I mean, can you even imagine that?
So, David, I'm hosting this morning and asking for what you think about this email to federal employees responding with what they did at work last week. What do you think?
Well, I think he doesn't have very much authority to do anything. That's my whole point. That, I mean, he walks around saying, wanting people to respond to him. He doesn't have as much authority as I do. I mean, from the way I understand it. That's the reason I posed the question that, like I put it. What if Obama had appointed Louis Farrakhan? Do you think the country would have stood by and allowed that to happen?
That's David in Florida. This is William, also in Florida. Riverview, good morning, Republican.
Good morning.
Go ahead, William.
Yeah, I would like to say that I agree with Trump. On years ago when I worked in sales, I worked for a tobacco company, I worked for some food service companies. I traveled, I was a regional manager, and I had to account, just like these people do, I had to fill out reports. I had to, they wanted to know where I've been, who I talked to, and I had to do it. And one time I didn't, I falsified it. Yeah, and I put down a bad report, and I got fired. So I agree with what Trump's doing. There's a lot of people that are obviously, it happens everywhere, are not doing their job, and they're just waste, just like Trump said. So I think they should be held accountable. And if they're doing their job and doing the right thing, I don't see what the problem is, why they're scared to fill out a questionnaire of what they've been doing. A lot of people are scared because there is a lot of waste. And I just wanted to say that this morning, and I agree with Trump. Thank you.
That's William in Florida. Elon Musk saying yesterday that this is a very trivial task. Lisa Murkowski, the Republican senator of Alaska, had this to say about this effort that came up this weekend. If Elon Musk truly wants to understand what federal workers accomplished over the past week, he should get to know each department and agency and learn about the jobs that he's trying to cut. Our public servants work hard to ensure that our national security is protected, that planes land safely, that forest fires not spread to our homes, that Social Security checks arrive on time, that research for the breakthroughs needed to cure diseases like cancer and ALS continues, and much more. Our public workforce deserves to be treated with dignity and respect for the unheralded jobs that they perform. The absurd weekend email to justify their existence wasn't it. The Republican senator from Alaska. A phone line for federal employees this morning. It's 202-748-8003 if you want to share your reaction and how and if you have responded. Again, we will bump up those calls when and if you call in. In the meantime, this is Robert, Waldorf, Maryland Independent. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I cannot tell you over the last 2 years how many federal workers have been on the golf course. I'm retired. I'm on the golf course. These guys are on the golf course playing golf, getting paid. You're sitting here and you watch these guys for the past 4 years. They have shown that 90% of the federal workforce has sat home, which has shown you that the federal government is bloated. To watch Trump cut this government is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. To watch these people in this area lose their minds is great. They do nothing for us. The biggest cut I think Trump could make right now that the American people would get behind is to change the name on the FBI building to the Donald J. Trump FBI building. If we could do that, we could cut a bunch of money. And the last thing I'd like to point out to you, John, Donald Trump, and then there's a law out there that states no president can run for no more than 2 consecutive terms. Well, Donald Trump would be eligible for a second term in 2028. So run in 2028, Trump, and keep kicking their butt. We love it out here.
That's Robert in Waldorf, Maryland. You mentioned the FBI. Kash Patel, the FBI director, writing in an email to federal employees this weekend in the wake of this email that went out, about 5 bullet points about what they did. The FBI, through the office of the director, is in charge of all of our review processes, telling workers that they should, for now, please pause any responses at the Justice Department and the FBI. The threatening signals from Musk, as the New York Times writes, were met with a mix of anger and amazement that anyone would issue such a blanket demand without consideration for the sensitive areas such as criminal investigations, such as legal confidentiality or grand jury materials. Some law enforcement supervisors have quickly told their employees to wait for more guidance from managers coming today before responding to the email, according to some of the officials interviewed by the New York Times. The headline of that story: federal standoff as some agencies urge their staff not to obey Elon Musk's order, is how they put it in the New York Times. This is Chris, a federal employee, Springfield, Virginia. Good morning.
Thanks. Hi, yes. My name is Chris. I am a federal employee, and as regards to the Elon Musk email, I mean, I do that all the time already. That's what I do. I have a supervisor. So, people think that government workers aren't doing anything. That is just not true. I report every week to my supervisor. Every year I have to report everything I did in the entire year. So this isn't really an issue. The issue is, why are they asking this from everybody in all agencies and not through their senior management? I mean, that's what an agency is. So I just don't get it.
What sort of guidance have you gotten this weekend, Chris, about how to respond? Have you gotten any guidance from your supervisor or higher up?
Not yet, but we will. They've already told us we will. So, but yeah, I have 5 things I did last week, and I only worked 3 days last week because we were on holiday on Monday and I was on leave on Thursday. So that's not the issue. The issue isn't I can't report what I did because I didn't do anything. That's not true. It's just that I don't know what this is all about. I don't know who's going to get it. I don't know why they need to know. They should be talking to their agency heads, not people like me, right? I'm sorry. I do my job, and that's what I do, just like everybody else.
Chris, when Elon Musk says on X that this is a pulse check for federal employees to make sure that they're even checking their emails, it's a trivial task, what do you say?
I check my emails constantly. I check my email all weekend long. I saw this when it came in. What do you think I was doing? I mean, I've been on my email every day probably for years. That's just what you do. It's what the job is. So I don't get any of this.
Chris,
I don't know what they think they're going to find, I guess.
How long do you mind saying how long you've been with the federal government, and has this made you rethink your federal service, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to probably consider, retiring early. I've been working for the federal government for about 34 years. I do what I do very well. I know what I'm doing. I have a lot of education to do what I do. So it's a loss for the government if I go, I suppose. But again, this is not a good atmosphere to work in, okay? It's really hard to stay on your mission, get your work done, and feel good when all you hear is all this nasty, horrible, guys are playing golf. I don't play golf during the work week. I don't actually play golf. I'm sorry, I couldn't afford that. I just don't see why people don't understand that we're human beings too. We're your neighbors. We go to your stores. We get our cars fixed at, the car places. We're just normal people, right? I just happen to work in this profession, and I liked it until now, actually. This is the worst I've ever experienced. I mean, it's just horrible when what you do is not respected. It's not honored. It's basically you're being turned into a criminal for doing your job, and that makes people feel terrible.
Chris, thanks for the call from Springfield, Virginia. Al is in Plymouth, Mass, Republican. Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, I want to remind everyone, Bill Clinton went before Congress and said the era of big government is over. Did everyone forget that in the 1990s? Meanwhile, the bureaucracy just lumbers along. Right away, 70,000 employees decided to take an early buyout. Well, how important can their job be? How virtuous and holy is their work every day if they don't feel they need to stay there? I mean, everyone's gone to the Division of Motor Vehicles. That hasn't changed in 50 years. But these billionaires that everyone seems to hate has allowed us to press a button on our device and get a package this afternoon. Meanwhile, the post office is losing money. So this whole promise of the Great Society under Lyndon Johnson, where is the Great Society? A $36 trillion failure. Liberals, we have tried it your way. It hasn't worked. Your grandkids are $36 trillion in the hole. Apple just announced this morning they're making investment in America due to the tariffs. 20,000 new high-paying jobs. So let's trust the process. Trust this process of ending this era of big government like your shiny thing Bill Clinton said in the 1990s.
That's Al. This is John, a federal employee in Middleburg, Florida. Good morning.
Morning. So I have to agree that, it is the email that comes out and everybody is up in arms because, well, what am I doing? What am I doing? Well, I've worked for the federal government in multi-facets for a long time. Department of the Army, you've worked for the post office. And I hate to say it, but there's a lot of misefficiency. And I think a lot of it comes down to the purchasing contracts of what they do. We'll just take the post office, for example. They pivoted away from a vehicle that cost them roughly $4,000 or $5,000 a year to operate. Their mid-gap vehicle was a Mercedes that cost $40,000, but came with no warranty, at least not one to speak of, because the dealerships were saying everything was non-repairable.
John, it
was not under warranty.
There was a Postal Service Mercedes?
Oh yeah, the Mercedes Metris. It's the stopgap in between the old LLV and the new vehicles that are under contract to be manufactured. And the repairs were astronomical. They were spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a repair on those vehicles, which threw the budget way out of proportion. I want to know whose kid went to college on that contract that the post office came up with. But we were given no repair manuals, no way to scan the vehicles for efficiency. So we had to contact dealerships and manufacturers to figure out what was going on with these vehicles. Same thing with the Army. The Army purchases these massive vehicles from Oshkosh and all these other defense contractors, BAE, and there's no guidance. It's not a normal vehicle. It's not a vehicle that you can just plug a scan tool in like you can a Ford or a Chevrolet. So the misefficiency that's out there in trying to diagnose, repair, and overhaul these vehicles. And then you see these vehicles sitting for years and years and years on end because of contracts that are written up by some government bureaucrat. So, yeah, there's a lot of misefficiency. I see a lot of people sitting around doing – they're working. Let's not understand they're not working. But the fact is that it takes so much to do one singular job because of all the red tape and everything else that you spend days upon days where it should be in the private sector, hours upon hours to get the same accomplished.
That's John in Middleburg, Florida this morning. More from the Sunday shows yesterday. This is Republican Representative Mike Lawler of New York. He was on ABC's This Week and was asked about this email of what government employees did last week. This is what he said.
Look, I don't know how that's necessarily feasible. Obviously, a lot of federal employees are under a union contract. But there's no question as the Department of Government Efficiency moves ahead, what they are seeking to do is ensure that every agency and department is effectively and efficiently doing their job. With a $7 trillion budget, there is no question that our government has become bloated and in many respects inefficient. And so the task at hand, obviously, for Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency at the direction of President Trump is to find efficiencies and savings and make sure that our federal workforce is doing their jobs and doing it effectively. We have many, many, many people who do a phenomenal job on behalf of the American people. But I think ultimately in any government, when a new administration comes in, whether it's a state government, whether it's a local government, and I've served at every level of government, a new administration is always going to do a review and try to find efficiencies across the board. When you're staring down $36 trillion in debt and counting, obviously something has to give.
Republican Mike Lawler yesterday on ABC's This Week. This is Senator Peter Welch of Vermont, the Democrat listing what he believes Elon Musk and Doge did last week. His 5 bullet points: they attempted to access IRS taxpayer data, accidentally fired workers researching the bird flu, fired hundreds of workers at the FAA risking flight safety, got caught lying about Doge savings, and his 5th point: threatened all federal government workers. The senator from yesterday afternoon, one of many members of Congress responding. We're going through those and hearing from you with a special line for federal employees, 202-748-8003. Bill's on that line, Springfield, Virginia. Good morning.
Yeah, how you doing, this Bill? I'm a retired federal worker, 45 years with the government, and I have to tell you that this email from Musk is just insane. First of all, the threat of if you don't answer, you're fired. What about people that are sick, on leave, TDY, traveling, doing any number of things? There's a whole bunch of people that are not in a position to answer it, for one thing. Second of all, the people, the viewers or listeners that are thinking people are afraid to put in their 5 points for some odd reason. Every job I've had, I had to report to my boss on a weekly basis the key things I did. It goes on in every government office. You're reporting every week the stuff. The problem with Musk is this is going to be all out of context. If it's individuals coming in, he's not going to have a clue how it relates to anything else, and it's just plain stupid. The other thing is much of the work that the government does is classified. And, you can't say 5 key things you did if half of them or all of them are classified. And there's no consideration for that either. So the whole thing is just absolutely insanely ridiculous. And Doge is just doing nothing but creating a sense of tension and confusion.
Bill, 45 years, what agency or line of work were you in?
DOD as a military officer, but then worked for Department of the Army and then DOD. And it's just this stuff that he's doing is taking no consideration of the bigger picture. It's just numbers and it's power. There's
what's the bigger picture, Bill?
In any of this. The bigger picture is how it impacts on how one office or what people are doing impacts on the rest of the stuff. He's looking at numbers. He's not looking at fraud, by the way, because the people he's got working for him are computer hackers. They're not CPAs. They're not people that will be doing accounting. They're hackers. So there's no fraud that they're looking for. They're looking for ways to cut places where they can gain power.
It's Bill, Springfield, Virginia. This is David out of West Virginia, independent. Good morning.
Yes, you just give me a few minutes. I'm a retired state worker, and every week we had to fill out an activity report of what we done. Every day we had to do a TNA, which is your time. And we had a supervisor who I'm sure checked it. And if there was any discrepancies, he let you know. And if you was falsifying, you would get caught because I know people had got in trouble. And I was 3 hours from where our main place is in Charleston. We had to go down there for meetings. I'd go in there and I'd see people who was not doing their job, doing nothing. So I have to agree with Mr. Musk and Trump 100%. I will guarantee you they are people in Washington who are not doing their job, who are staying home, falsifying their records of what they're doing, just like the gentleman said, out golfing or whatever. I've seen it firsthand, and this guy getting on there saying, oh, we're accountable for everything, I will personally guarantee you it is happening because I've seen it for 25 years when I worked for the state. So if it were happening in the state, you know it's happening in the federal government because they can get by with it a whole lot easier than you can in the state.
That's David in West Virginia. This is Ella out of North Carolina. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think about this effort, Ella?
This is not Ella. This is Emma.
Emma, go ahead,
Yeah,
out of North Carolina.
Yes. My thing is everybody need to put a pause on it because it's all about money. Y'all don't see them dollar signs hitting them in the mouth? It's all about money. They ain't sure no paperwork or nothing that they got a fraud. I want to know where is it at? Show us the fact. America want to see the facts. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.
That's Ella out of North Carolina. This is Democrats on the House Oversight Committee putting out this statement in the minutes after Elon Musk's email to federal employees saying, consistent with our congressional oversight, we seek to understand what Elon Musk did last week to better the lives of the American people, saying failure to respond to them will mean his resignation. Also on the Sunday shows yesterday, it was former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, Republican critic of Donald Trump. This email that to federal employees was brought up during his interview. This is what he had to say.
But Chris, the Trump administration has had some wins in these legal battles. In fact, a federal judge agreed that they can now put thousands of USAID employees on leave. So any surprise there? And take a look at all the wins they have had.
No, Martha, look, I think that if you follow an organized process, the executive will have a lot of authority to be able to lay people off, reorder priorities within the government as a whole and within particular departments as well. USAID as an agency, but working very closely with the State Department. So it's not that they can't do it. It's just you can't do it in this haphazard way where you have one guy, Elon Musk, and his Doge area, which isn't really even a department of the government, sending emails out. And then you have the people the president has appointed, and in some instances, like in Kash Patel's instance, are Senate-confirmed people saying, no, disregard that. That's where the person at the top has to give appropriate direction. And that has not come from the President of the United States at this point. He's giving different opinions to different folks, giving different direction. It leads to this type of thing. And that's where they're going to get in trouble in court if people sue, because there's no process for these folks to be dealt with fairly and appropriately, like any employee in the public sector or the private sector needs to be dealt with.
Chris Christie yesterday on the Sunday shows. By the way, when it comes to USAID, more news yesterday on that front, that part of the federal government. Notices sent Sunday by the Trump administration said that they will eliminate 1,600 jobs at USAID and place all but a very small number of remaining employees on leave. That's the headline in the story from the Washington Post there. This is James, Branson, Missouri, Republican. Good morning.
Good morning. This is James Lance, man of the living God. There's a lot of problems. I want to say a few things. I would like it if I would catch the ear of the American people, Democrats and Republicans, independents also. You know, this is part of a larger problem, a systemic problem that the Americans have dealt with a long time. Look at the streets of America. Look at Dubai. Okay, it's very evident there's fraud, waste, and abuse in our government, federal and state, et cetera. It doesn't matter. By the commentary of the left today, it's evident they're indoctrinated by a corrupt party. Simple. The Dems don't have respect for the will of the American people. We voted in power. We didn't vote what we thought we wanted. We vote what the law says. And the people aren't respecting it. The Democratic Party should just simply go on and mind their own business, take the hit, okay? In other words, you're not eating a dough ball in the street. You're not eating out of a grain bag that's thrown from the back of a truck. They need to take responsibility, and they need to be responsible for their own actions and put the time they're wasting in condemning and pointing a finger at the American president. We, the American people, have voted him in for a reason, and that's because the majority of Americans see the tremendous amount of waste, fraud, corruption, abuse, misuse, deceit, etc. It goes on and on. This is an out-of-control problem, okay? You can see it in the bills and the policies that the Democratic Party is voting in. There's more things that have to be done. How about calling treason treason?
That's James in Missouri. This is Rick in Georgia. Federal employee line. Good morning.
Good morning, John. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Rick. What line of work are you in? Can you say? And what are your thoughts about this email that went out this weekend?
I'd like to say Department of Veterans Affairs. And let me start off by saying this, John. There was a comment that I saw on C-SPAN yesterday morning by a caller with Pedro. And he urged C-SPAN to, during these times at least, perhaps open up an additional line for callers who seek to unite America, who can be common in our cause, whether Republican, Democrat, or independent, to find solutions for the current climate here. And it's bad. Now, back to being a federal employee. John, I almost wish that you had limited the calls today to federal employees only. I will tell you personally, I'm an avid C-SPAN listener, watcher. Every day I start my day with you guys. And it's almost infuriating to hear callers comment on things that they have little or no knowledge upon at all. Now, when it comes to this email that went out, a lot of problems. Number one, it came to our email addresses on Saturday, when I would probably say 80 to 90% of federal employees weren't even on the clock, didn't have access to our email, and then urged to respond within essentially 24 hours of a business day for us waking up to this morning on our email accounts. And then lastly, I wish I could have more time to discuss some of these things, but John, if this is a department of efficiency, why are they being so redundant? Our primary system of work as veterans employees is called VBMS. Okay, check into it. It happens to track every keystroke that we make. It tracks every claim that we work on, and it looks at the amount of time that it took us to complete that task. And then we get a scoring system whereby our quality is assessed. I don't understand why this email goes out asking us to give bullet points of the work that we did last week when it was already recorded on a daily basis with the primary system that we use. It's ridiculous, and it's very concerning as to why they'd ask for this information. It's not necessary. And for those people calling in, who talk about federal employees as if we're not living people, as if we're not Republican, Democrat, and independent. I happen to be a Republican. And let me just say this, that it's shameful that you would include American workers, the federal American workers, in this divisiveness which has been going on for so long. It's shameful. We work for the American public. I work for veterans. I happen to be a veteran myself. And I'm just upset with the entire process. Thank you for taking my call, John. And again, go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
You mentioned you're a Republican. Are you a Republican who voted for Donald Trump in Georgia in 2024?
I voted for him in the first election after the shameful display that went on when he spoke. I've never seen Donald Trump walk behind anyone. And when he willingly came out and allowed Putin to walk ahead of him as a U.S. veteran, as an Army combat veteran, I was disgraced with it. And I could not bring myself to vote for him in the second term. I could not vote for Kamala Harris. So for the first time in my adult life, I did not cast a vote for the president of the United States.
That's Rick in Georgia this morning. Retired federal employee Vincent in Georgia as well. It's Lilburn, Georgia, excuse me. Go ahead.
Yes, how are you doing this morning, John? Advocate, listener to C-SPAN, retired from the military, went up through the ranks, enlisted service, proud, known Republicans and Democrats in the military. Both are my friends. And I would say I was proud to work with each and every one of them. We had, of course, a chain of command. So at the end of the day, I retired from the military, and I thank God for allowing me to have that experience. I then went into the Postal Service after retiring. So at the end of the day, there are not necessarily any good or bad as far as federal workers, because we get our orders through a chain of command. And in the Postal Service, when I retired, I was a letter carrier. A letter carrier has to conduct itself preceding the representation of the United States Postal Service. We have generally routes that we took every day. There was no machines giving us our mails, our letters, and our packages that we have to take. We generally had a minimum of 400, maybe 500 stops per day. That's getting in and out of a vehicle, going up to the door, delivering packages, whether they were small or large, and for the customers. So that being said, there's a chain of command within the Postal Service. So I really would like people to understand that nothing is easy, whether you in the military or you a postal worker or a federal employee. They have rules and regulations. They have different stuff. There's no sitting around. There's no coffee. When I was in the post office, before I retired from the post office, I had a 30-minute lunch break, maybe a 15 or 10-minute break just once a day. And you cannot go anywhere to eat. I had to bring my lunch. I had to do all these things within the allotted time and continue to do what I needed to do to get the job done.
That's Vincent in Georgia. This is Beth, a federal worker out of Baltimore. Good morning.
Good morning. Actually, I'm on leave today, so if I really had to respond to that email, I'm in trouble. I work for the Pentagon. I work for the DOD, not the Pentagon. And I understand that I think the DOD is asking us to hold back on that email. Don't respond. There's another alternative. Go through the supervisor. They're going through management or something. But I've been a federal employee for coming on 20-plus years. I did not take the Doge buyout because I'm wanting, to retire peacefully. And I just think it's appalling. I mean, yes, there is waste. There's waste everywhere. I mean, there's even waste in the current administration, if you want to look at that, what they're doing. But that's a matter of opinion. If there's waste at every agency, they can take a scalpel, they can go through it and not just make one general blanket over, okay, everything, throw everything out, throw this program out, throw that program. See the effects of it. I mean, everyone thinks that they're saving money at this time. Not necessarily. Wait till the effects of this come down in 2 or 3, 4 years. Everything doesn't happen overnight in the government.
The New York Times reporting about the instructions that went out from the Department of Defense. This is from their story today. Quote, the Department of Defense is responsible for reviewing the performance of its personnel and will conduct any review in accordance with its own procedures. That according to Darren Selnick, the acting Pentagon official in charge of personnel, instructing Pentagon employees to, quote, for now, please pause any response, end quote. And that's where you are, Beth?
That is where I am. I think I answer to my supervisor. We have performance reviews every this fiscal year. It's going to be every month. Check-ins with our supervisor. We get midpoint reviews. We get end-of-year reviews. You could look at those and see where they go. You don't need to just cut or ask everyone, because what I do may not be significant to you, but it's significant to my program. So there's a better way than doing it. Like this way, watch in 2 or 3 years, you will see the American people will see the effect, because it's having the effect. And where's that money going to go? It's not going to go in my pocket. It's going to go, and Congress is going to up the ante for their pockets. And in addition, they're going to be raising the federal benefits for asking us to pay more, which truly is not. It's not good. So thank you for letting me speak. I've wanted to say that for years.
That's Beth in Baltimore this morning. This is Virginia out of Orlando, Florida. Good morning. Line for Democrats.
Good morning, John. I worked for the federal government for 40 years. I just want to say this to you and to your listeners out there, I've listened to C-SPAN since it came on the air back in the 70s. It's not fair to the federal employees what is going on here right now. Even with C-SPAN, you should have someone from civilian personnel to come in and explain the process that government employees, federal employees, have to deal with the evaluations. I worked in for the Department of Defense for 40 years, and we had evaluation every 6 weeks about what we were doing, how we did it, the processes. What was your job? What did you do outside of your job duties? I've worked in the top secret capacity as well for Missile Intelligence Agency and for the acquisition. I want you to know that there were one or two people out of my 40 years that I witnessed that didn't do their jobs. And they were reprimanded. They were verbally reprimanded. They were given a letter, and then a process of being terminated. I've known some being terminated for not doing their duties. I worked at Redstone Arsenal. But I want to ask you to ask your audience a question. How many of them have worked on their job for 24 hours a day? I have. During the acquisition center, there comes every year, come September, the new fiscal year, you have contracts that you have to get awarded, and you have to do it over a period of time. I've stayed on my job for 24 hours. I've had my family bring my clothes to me on my job, and I've washed up in the bathroom and continued. They always give you a performance appraisal. When I first went to work for the government in 1968, I know that I was doing outstanding work, but my supervisor told me, Virginia, I hope that you understand that you're colored. And if I give you an outstanding performance appraisal, these people here are not going to like it, but you're doing a great job. That was unfair. Later on, the unions got involved in different situations dealing with the so-called colored people, and we began to get awarded for the duties that we did. All of my work was outstanding. I received bonus. I received on-the-spot cash award. I don't know where these people are that don't do work, that work for the federal government. I've heard that, but where are they? Everybody that I know, Democrat, Republicans, Independents, they worked hard. We took pride in our work. We went beyond the call of duty. We did what nobody else would do, and we made sure that our evaluation that we got outstanding because we had pride in our work. Elon Musk, and I want to tell you this, John, I want you to remember this, and I want everybody that I'm talking to out there remember this. Elon Musk is going to start a digital company, and is dealing with money. What do you think he's going to do with all that information that he's receiving now from the federal government, Conte Block? It is unfair for Donald Trump to come in. I'm not going to talk about him. We know his character. You knew his character when you voted for him. But to allow someone to take a chainsaw, what about a scalpel? We've had reduction in forces. I was involved in a reduction in force, but I never went out the gate. I always got a job. They are going to happen. And that is always resolved with people retiring. Most of the times when the government has a reduction in force, those that are eligible to retire, they retire. And then they have enough people that have gone out the gate. Our government is going to suffer, John. I agree with the caller that called in before me. Our government is going to suffer because there are things that federal employees have to do that no other employees has to do.
Virginia, running short on time, want to get a few more callers in, especially those on the federal employee line. Joe in Washington, D.C., go ahead.
I think he said Joe, but my name is Shell.
Shell, go ahead, Shell.
Yeah. Okay, so nobody is saying that there shouldn't be an evaluation of what's happening in the federal government fiscally. But the way that it's being done is unlawful, and it's perpetuating more lies about federal government employees. From my perspective, most of the bloat is in the management. The higher ups, there's a lot of them, not in the line workers and the people who do the real work. So if I can, it's just like 3 points that I wanted to say about that email.
Go ahead, Shell, and I'm running short on time, so run through it.
So the email was disrespectful and unprofessional. That email should have been sent to Congress, who are also federal government employees. And whoever made the comment about federal government employees being on the golf course, he should have asked them were they on annual leave, which we earn. We can be on the golf course if we're on leave. Also, there are people who have called in the past who commented that we don't do work during inclement weather. That's another lie. We have options when the weather is inclement. We have options to take leave or telework. Some people have designations as essential and emergency workers, and they must work. They must report to the office. So stop saying that because we're not in the office, we're not working. And the last thing I'm going to say is what we did last week as far as that email, my work is measured by my work product, by my performance evaluations. And we take annual federally mandated training, which I wish Musk and his crew and members of Congress would take. This is all just creating a hostile work environment. And that was really all I wanted to say.
That's Shell here in D.C. This is Rhonda in Illinois, Democrat. Good morning. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the American people need to wake up and that it's all about the money. If they can cut all these people, they don't have to pay all these people. Then all that money, guess what? They can give it tax cuts to the little wealthy, which Donald Trump, that's all he cares about because he cares about three things: money, power, and his stupid last name, which is phony as a $3 bill.
All right. Joel, La Crosse, Wisconsin, independent. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to say I'm 100% disabled veteran, service-connected. And my view is that if you ask the people that are on the lines at the VA, the lower people that do the day-to-day stuff, they know how to save money. They know where the system is inefficient. The problem is it hits a wall when it goes up to the higher echelons of government. And if you could have the bottom-up people outlining how to save money in the government, and to not necessarily bypass their higher-ups, but to give them an idea of where to really clean up efficiency, I think that would go a long way to help in the situation.
That's Joel in Wisconsin. Federal employee line. Deborah, Parkersburg, West Virginia. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm calling in to tell all Americans they need to go to congress.gov and read what their Congress is doing. Andrew Biggs introduced a bill that repeals Obamacare. The bill repeals the Patients Protection Act, Affordable Care Act, and the Health Care and Education Reconciliation Act of 2010. It will be in effect in the fiscal year 2026. If they want to know what the government's doing, what the government is wasting our money on and everything else, they need to understand and read what Congress is doing.
Deborah, are you planning, as a federal employee, are you planning to respond to this email that came out on Saturday?
No. I don't respond to anything that Trump does.
How long have you been a federal employee, Deborah?
Over 25 years.
Do you want to say what agency?
No, I don't.
That's Deborah. Parkersburg, West Virginia, our last caller in this first segment of the Washington Journal. Stick around, a lot to talk about this morning, including we will take a look at the week ahead in Congress. Daniela Diaz joins us from Notice for that conversation. And later, a look at the White House today and this week. This morning, Emmanuel Macron arrived for a meeting with President Trump at the White House. We'll go through what they're talking about today and the president's meetings with other foreign leaders this week. And also today, Don Royal and Andrew McClenahan of the United Council of Welfare Fraud will join us to talk about efforts to track down fraud and abuse in public insurance assistance programs. That's all this morning on the Washington Journal.
Looking to contact your members of Congress? Well, C-SPAN is making it easy for you with our 2025 Congressional Directory.